Kirwan's Game Store, the best place in gaming.
Okay. Hey everybody, this is Josh. I'm joined by Rachel. We are commentating at the Kirwan's Game Store Regional Pro Tour Qualifier. We're watching Scott Collette and John Corpora do battle. It's a little late in the match, but let's see how it goes.
It looks like here John has been suffering from not having enough lands.
And it shows a little bit having an ultimate price in Elvish Mystic for sure.
You know what's interesting is I'm always interested about that ultimate price is actually not that good in this format comparatively to what you think it would be, just because there's so many good gold cards.
Very true. It's definitely apparent with the Dragon Lord Ojutai on the other side, just really taking John to school right now. And John going down to 4 life from that attack from Dragon Lord Ojutai. He's in a bit of spot right now, but he's got a Crux in hand, and that should be able to set him up. Scott is going to allow that to happen. So this could be a point in the game when John can start taking over.
It's definitely possible. He's in a very scary territory right now. It's really going to matter if the cards in his hand line up well with what Scott has.
This is true. There's an end-step Dromoka's command to make his Elvish Mystic a little bit more ferocious. Coming in for 2.
He's fallen very low here. We're in that red alert territory.
So Scott's hand looks to be 3 lands, a Fleece Mane Lion, and another Sylvan Caryatid. So he is not too high up on the charts right now, but with a more face down, he's got a couple of creatures on floor, and hopefully he can get through, but it looks like John has a Crux in hand.
This is one of the best things about Esper Dragons is when you go really low, you can crawl your way back.
Yeah. With Den Protector. Ooh, okay.
Alright, this is a game.
So flipping up a Den Protector gets him a card back from his graveyard, and he chooses Dragon Lord Ojutai, which is going to be very hard for John to deal with.
Crux of Fate is very interesting in this spot when your opponent has both dragons and non-dragons. The Wrath looks a little bit worse.
This is true. This is very interesting in my opinion. He's gonna go with a Fleece Mane Lion while his opponent is tapped out. So
it would be good probably to have gone under a Dissolve or something like that John most likely has.
Yep, I see an Ojutai and a Silumgar Scorn, which is the counterspell when you have a dragon. But at the same time, he needs to answer this Fleece Mane Lion.
He is playing a little bit to the board. He's forcing him. He has to deal with what he has and leaving his better threat in his hand. So that could be good.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it looks like he's going to still be able to counter.
Yeah. But Scott has drawn another Fleece Mane Lion. And he looks like he has another card in hand as well. So maybe we'll see a double threat here.
His deck is definitely performing for him.
Looks like John also has an Anticipate in hand. So if he wants to, before the Silumgar Scorn, try to search for an answer, then he definitely can. But he goes right for the counter.
He just is going to counter that, which is interesting because he knows about Dragon Lord Ojutai.
And looks like that's what Scott's going to go for. It is. I expect... Ooh, it's a dig through time.
That's very good.
Yep.
As usual, in whatever format, when you cast this card, it is insane.
This is true. He looks like he finds 3 lands, a dig, a counterspell, and a Bile Blight. So you're going to take another dig and a dissolve, probably?
Yeah, I would think the dissolve would be the thing to take here. That is not going to help him with the Dragon Lord Ojutai.
This is true. Hopefully the second dig can help him find an answer, but it's going to be problematic because it looks like Scott has more threats in hand as well.
Yeah.
Ooh, that looks like a Dragon Lord's Prerogative, too. The
Very
instant
good
speed
card.
draw
The
spell.
instant
Yeah.
speed draw spell.
Scott lost the life from tapping his lands. That's another interesting piece about this format is we have very, very good mana bases, but they can be very painful from time to time.
Yes. You see it in the Bant mid-range deck. You see it a lot in Absent Aggro.
He's got 2 lands that cause him damage on his side of the floor, but they seem to be very good for him.
Alright.
So,
Let's see who Ojutai performs a little better for.
I feel like it depends. John has to block if he attacks, and Scott has Den Protectors in his list, so he's able to get it back through that, but John also has the Haven of the Spirit Dragon, which
Right,
is the same
which
thing.
is very good. Also, to note, Haven of the Spirit Dragon is very good in these decks because it also helps them fix their mana to
This is
cast
true.
Ojutai. So
And
it's just like a little extra because they would probably play it without that.
yes.
This game looked like it was going to be very one-sided, but
Yep.
it's turning out to be a very good game.
This is how Control really gets in their games, though.
It's a grind. Control Life is a grind.
And this, I believe this is, yep. A Den Protector comes up, gets a counter. He's going to probably get the Ojutai back to his hand. Possibly. Ooh, a Fleeceman.
Oh, a Fleeceman.
Okay.
I mean, he's looking at being able to monstrous that next turn.
Yep.
So that's actually very good.
He also has 2 threats on the board now.
Yes.
So John needs to have a Wrath or 2 answers, which I don't believe he has currently.
He does not.
I don't think he has
And
even
he-
1 answer.
I don't know what he's even drawing here too. He has the dig, but it would take.
Okay.
Yeah, he scoops him up. There wasn't anything he could do there.
There it is. Bant midrange winning game 1 on the back of a couple of 3-2s and 3-3. Okay, we are going to go to the sideboard of these 2 decks.
Yes.
So on the Bant midrange side, we have a couple of Encase and Ice, Dromoka's Command, a Valorous Stance, 2 Glare of Heresy, 2 Erishan Clerics, a Negate, 4 Disdainful Strokes, and 2 Stratus Dancers. So I really like the cards in the sideboard of this list. I think the Disdainful Strokes and the Stratus Dancers, and probably the Negate are really, really good in this list.
Very strong.
I don't think the Glare of Heresy is warranted. It does answer Dragonlord Ojutai, but it's at sorcery speed, so it's not really going to be good enough to get the Ojutai off the table, even though exiling it would be really, really good because of the Haven and the Spirit Dragons.
I definitely think he should bring in the counter spells. He wants to make sure to keep his curve low enough that he can try to... What he won that game was off the back of the fact that he dealt a lot of damage very early before he could answer any of his threats. So he wants to make sure that he doesn't become too reactive, because the control deck is going to out control you if you give it that option. So he just has to be careful of that. On John's side of the table, we have a Virulent Plague, 2 Drown in Sorrow, 2 Thoughtseize, 2 Bile Blight. He has a Dragonlord's Prerogative, a Tassiger, 1 Foul-Tongue Invocation, 1 Ultimate Prize, and 2 Dragonlord Silumgars. So I think Dragonlord Silumgar will probably come in.
I like Dragonlord Silumgar. It's a way to actually deal with opposing Dragonlord Ojutais, and if you were able to steal a Den Protector or a Fleeceman line, it's just a really good blocker for you because it trades with most of the stuff that Scott's playing.
Absolutely. It's interesting. This Bant midrange deck is a very interesting choice because if you look at a lot of what the Dragons deck is packing in the sideboard, it doesn't quite answer everything that they have. So it's very robust. Like the Bile Blights are good with certain things, but they're not necessarily like you don't want to bring them in.
You're gonna
Ultimate
love
Price, they have a lot of
multicolored
cards, so you want spells against them, but it's not gonna hit everything that you want it to hit.
Yeah, versatility is definitely key in this format. I really like the Foul Tongue Invocation because it does answer basically everything that Scott plays, and it gains him some life against a bit of an aggressive deck.
Exactly. You have to ask yourself, if he had 4 more life in that last game, if he was able to fire off a Foul Tongue Invocation, how different would it have been? He would have had a lot more wiggle room. He wouldn't have to necessarily chose some of the lines he played. So. once, he's probably going through all the dilemmas that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Would you bring in Thoughtseize?
So John is probably going to elect to be on the play. Thoughtseize seems okay against Scott's deck, but I'm not sure how good it is exactly with the Den Protectors in Scott's deck.
True, very
So
true.
being able to bring cards back for value like that is really going to counteract Thoughtseize, and the loss of 2 life against that is not going to be that great.
Right. That's true. I definitely think the best thing here is for John to just be able to... I mean, we also saw him skip up on lands a few times, not be able to hit his land drops, which this Esper deck, you must hit your land drops. It's number 1. You have to hit them. That's one of its biggest things. Often when you like dig through time, or when you're casting your spells, you're casting your anticipates, you're taking lands very highly, whereas other decks can kind of like skirt around that.
Yeah.
So I think if he can, I think it's definitely a favorable matchup if he can make all of his land drops. He's on the play, so we'll see.
I fully agree. We saw John having multiple spells in his hand that could have answered the Den Protectors and the other things, but he didn't have any untapped lands to cast them with. So he had like dissolves in hand. If you were able to dissolve one of the 2 threats and then find an answer, then he's still in that game at 2 life.
Yeah, which, you know, you said earlier about the lands being very painful. The Esper Dragon's mana base is not very painful, but it's very slow. So
Yes. He's got,
that is the drawback of that.
there's 12 tapped lands, I can tell, in that list.
Yeah.
So he's got 2 Urborgs, which is very interesting, because most of the decks that want their land drops only play 1 Urborg.
Right, because you can't...
Yeah, the second one eliminates a land from your deck. So
Other than that, his dragon list looks pretty streamlined. Looks pretty much very similar to the ones that have been making the rounds and the circuits on like the SCG and the GPs.
So both players seem to keep their opening hands. John plays a Dismal Backwater and goes to 21.
You know, it's 1 life, but it's not that bad. You know, it adds up pretty quickly. Meanwhile, on the other side of the table, we have...
Scott takes 1 life.
Takes 1 life, exactly. No pain, no gain is what they say, right?
Entirely true. I've played Temur in Standard multiple times, and that is quite a painful mana base, and it feels terrible, but it feels amazing at the same time.
Yeah, you can cast all your spells, and they come into play untapped. Speaking of which, I do have to point out that their basic lands are very nice on both sides of the table.
This is true.
Unglued.
That is a Mastery of the Unseen. That is going to be a very, very hard card for the blue-black control deck to really take care of.
Sounds a little crazy, but when you ask someone who's playing Esper, how are you going to deal with Mastery of the Unseen? Counter it.
And it resolved this time, which is probably going to be
Yeah.
very problematic for John.
It is.
Because making a 2/2 every turn seems really good against a control deck.
Very. It's very good. So he's going to scry. He is looking for something that will give him some type of reprieve from that. He decides to keep on top.
He likes his keep. I think John can win this game. He has a Dragonlord Ojutai in his hand. So if John can keep Scott down a little bit, resolve that Ojutai, and just start going with it, he can actually win the game faster than Scott can if he can keep him down.
Which is another very good thing about these Esper Dragons decks, is they can turn the corner much better than just like a plain blue-black with a dragon deck.
So John is taking 3 damage from that Elvish Mystic, and it looks like it's going to get some serious damage, and followed up by a second one.
You can always just, you know, do the plan of attack with all your dorks. It looks like, as I'm sure everyone has noticed by now, that now Scott, it is his turn to miss some land drops. Luckily, he has the Elvish Mystics to grease the wheels a little bit.
This is true. That was John resolving an Anticipate. It actually looked like he took a Temple of Enlightenment out of that.
See, I told you, you gotta take those lands very heavily.
And there's a Bile-Blight on Elvish Mystic, which is going to set Scott back very far.
That is sick. That is really sick.
So even with the Mastery of the Unseen on the floor, a card that controls very, very tough time beating, John looks like he has a chance to just resolve Dragonlord Ojutai and take this game over.
Absolutely. He hasn't followed it up with any threats. He did find a land in Windswept Teeth, so we'll see what he can get on the table after.
2 coming down. It's like a fleece mane lion. It is. John looks like he's okay with that.
Yeah.
Looks like he's just
You
going
thought
to go
could
for
be
it.
Worse, right?
There it is. Dragon Lord Ojutai is going to hit the floor, and Scott is on the back foot now.
Oh, he drew his own Dragon Lord Ojutai, but it is looking not so good when you cannot cast it.
So he has a Den Protector in hand, and he had a Disdainful Stroke in his hand as well. So if he were to leave up mana, he could have stopped the Dragon Lord Ojutai, but having tapped it, it gave John the window to really resolve it.
Right, but you also don't know, Scott. There's a good chance that if he leaves the mana open, he doesn't just go for slamming the
and giving the control deck more times to draw cards and find the land drops that he needs is a really bad day.
Yeah.
So here are 3 really good cards. That is a Crux of Fate.
That looks like the card that he is choosing.
So Dragon Lord Ojutai deals his damage. Scott's going to take 5, go to 11.
The controlling aspect of this deck, coupled with the fact that it can kill you very quickly, is pretty merciless. It can be a very merciless deck.
This is very true. So Scott had...
Yep, he decided to pack it in.
Going to game 3.
I did see that he had a Death Mist Raptor in his hand, but as good as that is, especially with the mastery on the table, it just wasn't, it was too little too late. Looks like we're going to get a nice 3 games here. Hopefully we'll see neither opponent missing land drops.
So it was really interesting. I liked the Den Protector that Scott played, I believe, face down. He could have actually flipped that up next turn and actually returned a Windswept Heath from his graveyard and start hitting his land drops again.
Right.
But it looks like it was just too little too late with the Ojutai on the floor, and Scott picks him up pretty early.
It was too punishing.
The Crux of Fate really put that game away, and that's one of the
Bile
cards.
By on the 2 Elvish Mystics.
Yes.
Just think of how different that game would have been. And this is I mean, he has 2 in the main board, but this is a card that we're talking about. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good.
Yep.
It was really good right there.
I think now that we've seen Mastery of the Unseen, I believe that the Bile Blight is much better.
Definitely.
It doesn't clean up all the manifest tokens, but it's one of those things that if you can keep it under control long enough to get the Ojutais, then you can find a Crux of Fate, wipe up everything else, and keep hitting with the Dragon Lords.
Absolutely. So this is interesting. Scott being back on the play, as no one is surprised, that is very strong in Magic. So...
especially against the control decks.
It's very good. So we will see. So if you were playing today, what would you be playing? Would you be playing Esper Dragons? Would you be playing the Bant Midrange deck?
I really like the Bant Mage deck. My problem with it is I'm not a big fan of the island.
Wow.
It's easily probably the best card in Magic, which is sad. But I'm a personal Jund mage. So yes. I enjoy fighting the blue mages from time to time.
Personally, I'm Island all the way. Island number 1 for life. So I'd have to stick with if I was playing, I would definitely be playing like an Esper Dragons list.
It's really strong, and there's just not many things that I can justify not playing the deck. Like the red deck matchup is pretty bad for sure, but I think you still have good chances against it. And
definitely.
If you just dodge it all day, and maybe you play it one time and you can get lucky playing against it. I have a friend, Mark Morrison, at the Albany Classic that we had probably about last year. He was playing black-blue control versus red. He had mulliganed to 5 cards, and the red deck was on the play, kept his 7. So you're just in a horrible position at this point. Can't ever win a game. The mono-red player draws a card first turn, on the play. So he loses game 1 for drawing extra cards. So there is times from here and there that you can win games against mono-red playing control. They are tight games, and you have to draw very well, I believe, but you can win the games.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
So Scott's taking a mulligan here. He didn't really like his opening 7. But still being on the play against control is pretty solid. If he gets too many permanents on the floor and he gets cruxed, he can get behind pretty quickly having 1 less card. But if he's got a Den Protector and he can flip that up, then he can start getting some card advantage back, and that's really good.
I think what's going to be important for Scott is what we were talking about earlier, is diversifying his threats. If he can land a Dragon Lord's Ojutai and also have a non-dragon threat, Crux of Fate becomes a lot less good.
Yes.
So that's what you would hope for, which is maybe why he's mulliganing. He's looking for something that's diversified.
Yep. I think that may be why Bile-Blight is really good in this matchup, because from what we've seen from Scott, most of his non-dragon threats are 3 toughness or less.
That's
so
true.
the Bile-Blight can clean up the non-Crux creatures, where the Crux can get everything else.
That's true. Looks like he is looking.
Scott has an Island, a Windswept Teeth, a Fleece Mane Lion, a Den Protector, and an Elvish Mystic in his hand. So he's got a pretty fast hand right here.
Yes, he does, which is good. It's what you want against Esper Dragons. They play more than one.
Yes. I think 6, technically. Ugin being counted as dragon.
Yeah, definitely. You can get it back with Haven, you can count it as dragon.
John's hand, however, looks very, very good. I see a Silumgar Scorn, a Foul Tongue Invocation, a Cave of Quelos, Crux of Fate, a Temple of Enlightenment, and a Silumgar the Drifting Death, which is a very, very good card.
Yeah.
Ooh. Here is a Death Mist Raptor from Scott. This is a card that Control has a very tough time dealing with because you have the ability to keep returning it from the graveyard.
Yes, absolutely. Recurring threats like that are absolutely pinnacle against Esper Dragons.
So Scott now has 2 Den Protectors and a Death Mist Raptor, that's the biggest piece of the combo, is to have both of those cards.
And he has another Death Mist Raptor in his hand. So this is interesting. It's interesting. I love the decks with Death Mist Raptor and Den Protector because it does make you question what it is.
Yeah.
Like when it does get flipped up, and that's when morphs are the best. Is when you're not 100% on what is underneath that.
So John is going to fetch for a land. I believe it's going to be an island, which is going to activate his Silumgar Scorn. So Scott tapped out for his morph creature. So that's going to leave Silumgar Scorn 4 spike mode to be able to get there.
Absolutely.
But John does have a dragon in hand, so...
If I was John, I would absolutely not show. I think Scott understands that he wouldn't show either way, so I don't think he's going to feel as though he doesn't have a dragon in hand. It's just don't give your opponent more information.
And that's what John did. He definitely did not reveal the Silumgar out of his hand, just to try to give less information if possible.
Sneaky. Looks like he doesn't like what's on top.
Update the life totals. So it's 19 to 16 right now. So Scott is out to a bit of a lead, and that is a Stratus Dancer on the floor. I really like Stratus Dancer. To be able to flip it up and counter a spell in this matchup and have a creature is really, really good.
And the more morphs, the better. There's no saying that he knows that he is playing Stratus Dancer. Actually, if I was on John's side of the table, I wouldn't assume my opponent was playing Stratus Dancer.
This is true.
Which could get him a little bit in the end.
But at the same time, the morph creatures that we know about are the Death Mist Raptors and the Den Protectors, so they are still really good creatures.
Right.
So you definitely want to get rid of them, because them flipping up is returning Death Mist Raptors or a card from your graveyard to your hand, so it's definitely not a card you want. But John looks like he's a little light on spot removal. He's only got the Foul Tongue Invocation, so that gives Scott the opportunity to, say, sacrifice the Death Mist Raptor, and then get back when he flips up the Stratus Dancer. Ooh, revealing a Silumgar. So he's going to go, he wants the 4 life here for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just going to give him more time.
Flip up the Stratus Dancer, and he's going to counter the Foul Tongue Invocation, which is going to be very, very good for Scott.
And I would dislike being in John's seat right now. That would be a very bad time to find out that he has Stratus.
So it looks like 7 damage is coming across, which is going to be a little rough for John. It's a 2-turn clock right now. So John really needs to resolve that Crux of Fate next turn, which it looks like it's going to happen because Scott is currently tapped out.
Yeah, it just looked like he was getting the exact text as the card is for.
Yeah, it's a Japanese Stratus Dancer, so it's not the easiest thing to read.
Yeah.
Oh, John misses the land drop for the Crux of Fate.
The struggle is definitely real here for John.
He's got the Anticipate in hand. Ooh, another Foul Tongue. Okay, this is really good.
That's good. That's making it.
So he's going to basically gain 5 life.
Right.
1 damage from the Elvish Mystic, 4 life from the Foul Tongue.
Right. Interesting that he, chose to sacrifice the Elvish Mystic. He
And then
could
he's
have
gonna take
sacrificed the
6.
Death Disruptor since he knows he can bring it back with what's in his hand. But he is a little light on land.
He's
I could
still
see
missing that land drop. That land drop Crux of Fate would be
Hurts.
very, very good for him right now because
Yes.
Scott is also stuck on lands.
Yes.
Ooh, and
6 is
anticipate.
anticipating. He is meditating on his
So there's
recourse.
he's got a Bile Blight in there, and if I believe he can't even cast the Bile Blight actually, which is a little rough for him right now. I wonder if he thought about that when he was tapping his lands, because I don't see an Urborg on the floor.
If I was John, I don't know if I would have been thinking about it, but I definitely would have been thinking about taking a land.
Yes.
No matter what was in the thing, so he probably just figured he was going to hit a land off that.
Yeah, he was. So it's 6 damage versus his 4 life, so he needs to hit a removal spell.
He does, yeah.
And there aren't too many ultimate prices in the list.
No.
So I believe that you're definitely looking for the Bile Blight there, and at the same time though, if you tap your Caves of Koilos, that's 1
You take
damage,
1,
and then
yeah.
the other 3 damage from the creature is still going to kill you. So he was probably looking for a different removal spell.
He was just looking for something he probably didn't have.
Probably one of the ultimate prices,
Yeah.
because I believe that's
He
the
has
only removal
1.
spell he can cast.
He has 2 post board.
Okay. Yeah, he was probably looking for an ultimate price. He knew he was dead to the Bile Blight. I'm gonna switch to Hey guys, that was a pretty good match. I seem to enjoy watching the control mages lose. That's a fun thing for me. It's really interesting to see the power of Dragonlord Ojutai on both sides of the floor, on a bit more of an aggressive list and a bit more of a controlling list. That was definitely a fun match to watch. It shows the power of Elvish Mystic from time to time, because
Yeah,
Scott was
just
stuck
being
on mana
able
from
to-
time to time.
Just being able to get out in front of your opponent, especially when they're playing the mana base that's very slow.
Yep.
It's almost like 2 turns ahead of them.
Yeah.
So.
It's definitely good. I enjoyed watching these matches. I believe that control generally has the upper hand in these decks, because Scott's deck's not too fast, and if the removal spells line up, then Scott can definitely fall behind pretty quickly.
Absolutely. I think that as much as there was lines of play involved and skill involved, I think that all 3 of the games would have been a little bit different if they just all hit their land drops
Yep.
like you imagine when you build your deck. So while I don't think it's necessarily indicative of the matchup in general, I do think that the band deck has the ability to beat the Esper Dragons deck. I would
For
say
sure.
it's more in favor of them.
Yeah, the recursion with the Den Protector is really, really good. But I could just only imagine that if the Esper player found his 5th land and was able to cast the Crux of Fate, that it would have been a much different game.
It would have been a much different. I mean, there's no saying that it would have been over because he has those Den Protectors and he has those Death Disruptors, but the longer the game goes on, the less it's good for the band deck.
Yeah,
so.
for sure. And he was stuck on mana, so what you really need to do with the morphs, you need to be able to play the morph and then
You're happy?
it looks to be, there's a Temple of Enlightenment, so I believe we are looking at an Esper Dragons list.
Ah, lovely.
I will give you this, because I believe you prefer them. So, ooh, this list I like quite a bit, actually. This is a little bit lower to the ground. It's not quite a Dragons deck. It's actually Green-Red Collected Company, which is really awesome.
Oh my, spicy.
Very much. He's got 4 Collected Companies in the main board, and it is quite awesome.
I'm just looking at the blue-black, the Esper Dragons deck. Looking at specifically what it differs from the last one that we were watching, what this deck has that I really, really like in Esper Dragons that the other one did not have was Ashiok. He plays a whopping 3 Ashiok main board. That is crazy amounts of Ashiok.
And I believe that's going to be really, really good in this matchup,
Yes,
actually.
very. If he can resolve one, he can get it down, it is going to be good. Ashiok's one of those good cards that's good against control and also good against creature base decks. Other than that, it looks like he has a pretty stock list. He does have a Perilous Vault in the board. That's been a question here when we were walking around talking to everybody, was what do they feel about Perilous Vault? Does it still have a spot in the format? Does it not? He has 1 in the board.
So I guess Peck took a mulligan, and he was recently Thoughtseize. So that's actually quite a setback for him.
Yes, and it looks like he is
Right.
like on land.
So Peck's actually the control player. So I guess the Thoughtseize in that sense is actually pretty good. It's gonna help even the table for sure.
Mm-hmm. He just really needs to hit his land drops, and he does not have a land drop this turn, from what I can see in his hand. If he can't find his land drops, pretty much any creatures will take it home.
This is for sure. Luckily, he's got 2 black, and he can definitely get away with a Bioblight in the situation. The Flamewake Phoenix is probably the target because it's a flyer, not very blockable, and it's presenting easily some of the most damage.
Yes.
He took the Boon Satyr with the Thoughtseize, which I really like because if he takes the Flamewake and he plays the Boon Satyr, he can get the Flamewake back. Ooh, oh, and a Sarkhan.
Oh,
so
Sarkhan.
this must be out of the sideboard. No, it is.
Main deck
Yep,
Sarkhan?
he's got 2 main deck Sarkhan the Dragon Speakers, which is really, really good.
I think Sarkhan is insanely good right now, but nobody is playing him. That's an exciting, fun card to see.
So the control deck is really, really far behind right now, and it looks like he's finding some land drops. That looks like a Dismal Backwater, which is going to be pretty good. Give him another life. It's going to put him to 8. Which is just actually not enough to survive this next attack. So the Heir of the Wilds is going to get a Ferocious trigger, and he's going to be able to buy back the Flamewake Phoenix with the Sarkhan. So he's got a lot of damage coming across right now.
This is why Sarkhan is very good. It is a creature that you cannot kill with a removal with an easy removal spell. Oh, and
That's
it
gonna
looks
be
like
it.
that's done.
Ryan's going to miss too many land drops to keep up with the green-red deck, and the recursion of the Flamewake Phoenix was really, really big for him.
The difference between, obviously, the main difference is, but the band deck was a lot slower than this deck, so this deck can very easily just crawl right under it, and when you miss the land drops, there's nothing that will save you.
All right. So John Ross is victorious with the Green-Red Collected Company. I'm definitely a little sad we didn't get to see the Collected Company get played because that would have been really, really fun. But it was still pretty good to watch my Forest and Mountains do some work.
I know, I'm a 0-2 for my islands, so, you know, I'm just going to say, enjoy it now. It will end soon.
Probably. I think the amount of Esper Dragons list that we saw in the room is fairly high. It's going to be a prevalent deck going forward for sure.